connecting Arizona. This is 12 News.
Serious but stable condition. 19-year-old Johar Tsarnaev is apparently unable to communicate right now as police and the country wait to hear what his full intentions were and why he apparently wanted to kill Americans. New this evening, Massachusetts State Police releasing a night vision photo of the boat where the bombing suspect was found. It's believed he hid inside the covered boat for almost 24 hours. A special group of interrogators, part of what is known as the High Value Detainee Interrogation Group, is expected to question him. The interrogators are drawn from the FBI, CIA, State Department, and other agencies. Eventually, he's likely to be charged under federal law, which means he could get the death penalty. Massachusetts does not have a state death penalty statute. This is the worst terrorism case on U.S. soil since 9/11. The man who found the Boston bombing suspect in his boat may be a hero. He's a retired telephone worker who calls his boat his pride and joy. Neighbors say he is a bit shaken up about what went down last night. U.S. counterterrorism officials are researching the suspect's ties to the Islamic Jihad unit. That's a group comprised of Chechens, Uzbeks, and other Eastern Europeans. It has been a known affiliate of Al-Qaeda. No confirmation of the suspect being affiliated with the group so far, but this is the primary group that concerns officials. And Mark Curtis talked about the issue of radical Islam with the Valley's, if not the country's, foremost expert on the issue. They sat down Friday night discussing what interrogators will be looking for.
Joined now by Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Doctor, as word spreads of a possible affiliation of these brothers with the radical Islamic Jihad unit, that's the name of their group that they were supposedly tied to, there'll be a rush to judgment that we're dealing with an attack by Al-Qaeda on the U.S. Is that what you think happened here?
Well, I think at this point, we have to be careful not to get too lost in whether it was one group or another. The bottom line is we're still fighting a radical ideology that has hundreds of manifestations from Al-Qaeda to Islamic Jihad. The bottom line is that this is a militant, supremacist ideology that infects the minds of those Muslims that believe in Islamism or political Islam and its supremacy over the West, and end up hating the West and believing that democracy and freedom is a threat to them. So it ends up dehumanizing in their minds American citizens, and what ends up happening is they believe their last hurrah as they leave this planet is to kill innocent and maim those that participate in democracy, not only non-Muslims but Muslims alike.
We're hearing stories that the older brother who was killed had gone on an extended trip, possibly for some sort of terrorist training. Does this signal in your mind, do you think, that the Chechnyan violence, which has permeated Russia, could be spreading to the U.S. now?
Well, what's spreading around the world is, as part of the Arab awakening in the Middle East, we've seen Chechnyan Al-Qaeda types spreading to Syria, spreading to Afghanistan and Iraq when we were there, and all over the world. So this type of metastases are spread throughout the world, not only in the Middle East, but into the West, is something that we should begin to develop a strategy for. And we really have not figured out how to counter terrorism early on. We've only been doing sort of a whack-a-mole program at the end when we try to find them as they're planting those bombs.
Which is oftentimes too late, as we saw in the case of Boston. We have seen some Al-Qaeda type signatures on this situation that we've seen unfolding. The pressure cooker bombs that have been used in the past in Pakistan, for example, and the suicide vest that was worn by the older brother who was killed last night.
Yeah, and these signatures are actually just part of, they learned these things. These brothers probably learned it from Inspire magazine, which was Anwar Awlaki's magazine that he got into the head of Nidal Hassan with. And I'll remind people that only a year ago, Tariq Mahena was convicted for 17.5 years in Boston federal court for aiding and abetting Al-Qaeda. And yet we didn't, I think, address the ideology that fed him. And in many ways, he'd become a cause celeb as targeted because of his ideas, etc. And I think now maybe we'll begin to pay more attention to the ideas that fuel the separation of certain Muslims from our community so that we as Muslims can lead the reforms necessary to prevent these future attacks.
Finally, Dr. Jasser, are you surprised that no group so far has claimed responsibility for this? And would that signal, in your mind, an operation by a couple of lone wolves, or is this the new and improved version of these terrorists who are more stealth in their approach by not taking responsibility?
I think if you monitor some of the radical groups like Al-Qaeda and the militant Islamists out of Egypt, they were not taking credit. They actually were pejoratively favoring and praising this act. So it seems that it possibly, most likely, was a lone wolf. But I don't like that term because, remember, the ideas that got into these brothers did not come out of their own head. They were radicalized in a milieu of environment from Chechnya, from the internet, and from radical Islamists that got into their head.
And one more question before we go. As a Muslim, are you concerned that as we get more information in the days and weeks to come, that there'll be a backlash against Muslims in America because of this?
I'll tell you, as an American and as a Muslim, I'm concerned first about Boston. I'm concerned about Americans and our safety. And, you know, I think right now Americans should see us as Muslims leading the fight to defeat these ideologies. And I hope all of us remember that we can't allow them to win and unravel the very fabric of pluralism that keeps us who we are and makes us safe.
Zuhdi Jasser, good to see you. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.